Millions of freed African Americans exercised their right to vote after the Civil War, and they voted for black legislators who began to fill local and national offices.
Breaking down the extraordinary racial barrier that has for so long defined the political culture of the United States, and creating in the middle of the South a population of people, of voters, who would be voting in their own interest, voting to protect themselves in this extraordinarily hostile environment, is in fact a revolutionary accomplishment in such short a time after the war.
By the 1890s, Southern whites began to fear that blacks with political power would try to integrate Southern society.
White Southerners are resistant of the idea of living in an egalitarian society in which African Americans might operate as equal partners.
To keep blacks separate and powerless, Southern legislators passed what became known as Jim Crow laws. They were named after a song and dance routine called Jump Jim Crow that savagely mocked rural blacks and was performed by whites in blackface. The laws themselves were even harder on blacks.
They encode white supremacy through the enactment of segregation statutes, taking the vote away from African Americans, all sorts of things that are designed to subordinate black people, to establish a place for black people that they know, in a sense, to choreograph race relations.
Lawmakers could not violate the 15th Amendment, which prohibited states from denying anyone the right to vote because of race. So they devised obstacles that blacks could not overcome. States passed laws requiring voters to pay a tax or to prove that they own $500 worth of property. Other laws required people to pass literacy tests before they could cast a ballot.
In state after state, from 1890 to 1904, every state in the Deep South, the 11 original Confederate states, held state constitutions which functionally disenfranchised black males from the right to vote.
But the Southern states made sure there were loopholes in these new laws for whites. One, called the Grandfather Clause, allowed whites to bypass the poll tax and literacy tests. The law said if their grandfather had voted, then they could vote. At the time, no black in the South had a grandfather who had voted.
It was a gradual decision to obliterate the constitutional rights of millions of American citizens because of the color of their skin. And yet, it was a conscious decision the majority of white Southerners made because they had the power to do it.
The Jim Crow laws ensured that the promise of Reconstruction remained unfulfilled in the South for decades to come.